Session 2 includes information on the Individualized Support Plan, or the ISP, a required document for each individual who receives services from the Division of Developmental Disabilities. This session also addresses the guardian's responsibility in relation to the participation in the planning process and the development and implementation of the ISP. Individuals who receive services from the Division of Developmental Disabilities are assigned a support coordinator. The support coordinator is responsible for the development, documentation, and ensuring the implementation of the Individualized Support Plan. The planning team involves as many people or organizations as needed. There are mandatory components that each ISP is required to contain due to state and federal regulations. These are located in the ISP guide. The individual will lead the person-centered planning process where possible. The individual's representative should have a participatory role as needed and as defined by the individual, unless state law confers decision-making authority to the legal representative. All references to individuals include the role of the individual's representative. The individual directs the process to the maximum extent possible and is supported in making informed choices and decisions. The guardian will be contacted in advance to discuss a date to meet and to begin gathering information for the development of the ISP. The support coordinator is responsible for obtaining required signatures from the guardian, and in order to avoid any disruption in services, the guardian's signature must be obtained before the implementation or start date of the ISP, but preferably at least 30 days prior to implementation. Please take special note of the fourth bullet point. The guardian will receive an annual renewal, called a reinvestigation form, from Medicaid that is mailed to the guardian approximately 2 months before the individual's Medicaid case is set to expire. If this form, along with asset or bank account information, is not returned in a timely manner, the individual's Medicaid will close. If the individual is receiving waiver funding, loss of Medicaid will interrupt the individual's funded services. As a part of the planning process, assessments are used for the development of the ISP and may be completed by regional office staff and/or the support coordinator with input from the individual, guardian, and/or family. The identification of support needs is aimed toward maximizing self-determination, inclusion in the community, health, safety, and other areas that together make up the vision for a full and meaningful life for the individual. All of the information collected in the assessments and at the plan meeting will be used to design a personal support plan that addresses needs in all 5 domains: daily life and employment, social and spirituality, community living, healthy living, safety and security. Personal outcomes and goals will be created by using information gathered for any or all of the 5 listed above.
Daily life and employment. The key principle in this area of the ISP is involvement in meaningful daily activities, and that all people have the opportunity to explore employment options and receive supports necessary for successful employment. Community living. This area of the ISP includes preferences expressed by the individual on where and with whom they want to live. Guardians can expect this conversation during the planning meeting and/or throughout the plan year. Social and spirituality. At this point in the planning process, the team will discuss information on making new friends, full participation in their community, possible community service involvement, and the expression of their values and beliefs. The healthy living section focuses on the overall health of an individual and their ability to participate in healthcare choices. When an individual is more involved with this part of their life, they are more likely to make healthier decisions. This section also identifies and addresses all health issues, conditions, risks, and related supports that an individual needs. The safety and security section of the ISP discusses the education that individuals are afforded on their rights, as well as the responsibilities an individual has regarding personal safety. Assessments for this section may include risk assessments, fall prevention, and general safety support needs such as cooking, potential risk for abuse and/or neglect, natural disaster support needs, etc. This section addresses the individual's income and outlines the management of those funds, and it is a mandatory component of the ISP. Although some people may have a payee, it is still important to educate them in how to be fiscally responsible in as much as they are able. As mentioned previously, when an individual is more involved with this part of their life, they are more likely to make better financial decisions. The ISP should discuss self-advocacy and teaching components that are needed in order for the individual to learn and develop their self-advocacy skills.
Due process rights restrictions. This process ensures that if an individual's right must be restricted due to safety, health, or other reason, that the individual is afforded due process. It also ensures that there is an avenue through teaching and education for that person to have that right restored. If there is a need for a rights restriction for an individual receiving funded supports from DD, a due process is required and must be reviewed by the Due Process Committee prior to the restriction taking place, except for those rare cases of an emergency situation. If the ISP restricts any individual rights, due process must occur even when the individual has a court-appointed guardian. The necessary components for a due process are justification, which addresses the purpose and rationale, conditions under which the restriction is applied, teaching or support strategies to help the person regain their right, monitoring methods, criteria for restoration of their right, review schedule, and notice of right to due process. All of the following components must be met prior to the commencement of service delivery. Authorization. This requires signatures from the individual and the guardian. Utilization review. A process to approve funded services based on the individual's need. Medicaid waiver services cannot be accessed until state plan services are investigated. Monitoring services. Support coordinators are required to monitor services on a regular basis. Summaries of these visits may be provided by your service coordinator. Changing, increasing, or decreasing services may require the team to reconvene to discuss the changes and obtain signatures. Services cannot be modified until all necessary authorizations are in place. As per earlier discussion, signed authorizations must be obtained prior to implementation of the ISP and the services. The Utilization Review Committee is a formal committee established to review proposed services and budgets and make recommendations before services are approved and authorized as outlined in the ISP. All funded services are based on a person's need for that service. Any new or increased service requests must be reviewed by the URC. Payer of last resort. The division of DD is the payer of last resort. All other funding mechanisms must be explored and exhausted. This also holds true for all services provided by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, such as vocational rehabilitation and services provided by local school districts. Medicaid waiver services cannot be accessed until state plan services are investigated. State plan services are paid for by Medicaid, such as homemaker or personal care services, through the Division of Health and Senior Services and non-emergency medical transportation. The ISP must be reviewed on a quarterly basis to ensure that progress is being made on the outcomes and goals, as well as the information that is included in the ISP to ensure it is the most current and up-to-date information. The ISP can be modified at any time during the plan year by request. Depending on the service, the support coordinator may monitor monthly or quarterly to ensure that the service delivery is meeting the person's needs. In residential settings, monitoring includes a monthly face-to-face assessment of health, environment, and safety, services and staff, rights, and money. In non-residential settings, at least quarterly, the SC monitors specific services authorized in the ISP. Public administrator roles and responsibilities. Pre-meeting participation, such as phone calls, emails, or mail, may include contact from the support coordinator to gather information which will aid in the planning process. Availability to meet with the team and individual throughout the year as necessary. Guardian signature is required in order to implement services. Ensuring Medicaid remains current and active in order to avoid disruption of services. Initial Medicaid application, annual recertification for Medicaid, standard means tests sent out by the regional office, and spend down must all be met to maintain Medicaid eligibility. If Medicaid does not remain active, providers will not be paid by Medicaid, and the public administrator may be held financially responsible.